BRICS is not an organization with membership and so on and so forth. So how does it relate to the existing kind of global governance structures such as the G20, G7?
Look, BRICS member states are allowed to continue trading and being members of the G20, as in the case of South Africa.
Mm.
So you're not prohibited to be members of it. That tells you something. There's multi-pronged membership. But what BRICS has established, it has reduced chances of the begging bowl, so to speak, where you have no alternative. You have to go to the IMF. You have to go to the World Bank. World Bank figures and IMF figures, they speak good of BRICS today because there is BRICS. Prior to that, there was nothing to speak of. So G20, G7 are just other entities with an additional entity, which is BRICS. But BRICS, its priority is the global south. Its priority are those who are left at the periphery of the economies of the world. Nothing is going to change. If there is loss, is that certain institutions will no longer be calling shots like they did 50 years ago or even 20 years ago because of the existence of BRICS. But BRICS also, beyond taking away the begging bowl, as I say, BRICS has given sovereign to these BRICS member states. There is more sovereign. Case in point, although it's political, but case in point, there were sanctions, or there are sanctions, both by the United States and the European Union against Russia. But China and other BRICS member states have been able to cushion 80% of those sanctions, especially when it comes to oil. So you see what is happening in these dynamics. This talks about global power now. It talks about global power being part and parcel of the rising knowledge systems, which have been there, but they were not part and parcel of the main system. So here's another system that comes up. The system that called the shots previously calls those shots. It says, we're sanctioning Russia. Nobody gets oil from Russia. And then China says, okay, I'll take 80% of that oil. Nobody wants it. I'm taking it. Mm. So if there's a deficit from prior trade, when everything was open, it is 20% deficit. And that's very minute if you count with the new members that are coming on board. I'm just making one example. Mm-hmm. There are several of them. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about markets and tariffs.
Yeah.
We as South Africa, we've gotten an entry point into markets that we wouldn't even dream of. Language barriers, geographical barriers, supply chain system barriers, even in terms of regional areas. Because remember, these regions also, most of these regions, their origins is colonialism, the way they are structured. Even in Africa, we still have, Lusophone, Francophone, Anglophone. BRICS also is getting rid of that. We don't speak Spanish. We don't speak Portuguese, by the way. But we're dealing with Brazil, which is a purely Lusophonic country in South America. They are becoming one of our biggest trading partners. In terms of China, we've got zero tariffs goods, especially when it comes to agricultural produce. There is the list even of new agricultural produce that has been added post-FOCAC. So that means small and medium farmers now have markets that we couldn't have access to prior to BRICS. And once the payment system is in place, a farmer in Limpopo can sell his avocado anywhere in the world. That's what BRICS is doing. BRICS is coming to the grassroots, small, medium, and national markets, and is exposing those markets to different areas. And that's another role of South Africa, that as that happens, as we already have the customs union within Southern Africa, we then become a BRICS arm, a BRICS extra of Southern Africa, whereby we pull these other economies to benefit. In the same manner that FOCAC is a vehicle going to the BRI, the Belt and Road Institution, also South Africa, for nations of Southern Africa or African nations. Now with Ethiopia also, we become then a conduit so that these nations can access. What has happened? Mozambique, Malawi, Botswana can come to South Africa and speak on BRICS issues, leveraging on the relationships that they have with South Africa. And South Africa can leverage on those relations because you are assured of the produce and support. That then it goes directly to BRICS. So South Africa then has a muscle. South Africa is tied to Greenback to a certain extent, but also South Africa is tied to Pula, which is always flying high. When it floats, the rand benefits. So with those powers, as a member of BRICS, you have a muscle. And South Africa also can act as an economic tentacle in the region, thanks to BRICS. It starts regionally, national, regionally, global. So the the plates of the global economy have changed, are changing. Of course, we're going to have tremors. We're going to have some earthquakes, but the system is set. It's just for BRICS to hit the ground running. And the first one on the agenda, of course, is the new members, but is the payment systems. Yes.
We are likely to see more joining BRICS. Does that not create an atmosphere where all these countries coming with their own dynamics, for lack of a better word, kind of confusing the system? Because the more players you have, the more ideas, the more issues.
I think we take ourselves too seriously, or for lack of a better word, sometimes we think we're not confident. We here, I'm talking about BRICS. We here, I'm talking about the Global South. We've moved from 5 member states to 10 member states. And there's a possibility that we're going to have 20 member states, if I'm stretching it. How many member states does the United Nations have?
More than 50. 100 and something. Yeah.
Exactly. Do we have confusion, or we have rules and hierarchies within the United Nations with specifics on certain subjects, departments? We have policy, we have projects, we have resolutions at the United Nations level. So why would the Global South fail? We're still talking about 1020. To answer your question, it is early days. actually we need that convergence of different ideas, which if I were to talk like a cook and say, I need all those ingredients to see, maybe I'll come up with a masterpiece. And if it doesn't happen, it's a learning curve. If we count centuries and the 50 years after the so-called independences of these BRICS member states, it is better to have 5 or 10 years of butting heads and move forward. The formation as BRICS had to happen, because you can't imagine that just because you call the shots, therefore the other party is just stagnant. What the other party is doing that is different and new, that is what BRICS is doing vis-a-vis those who are in the economic lead in the world, is to establish their own system that is ideal for their own development. So BRICS member states have one main point now: to work on their commonalities, on the points that they share, in order to establish economic development. So I think as BRICS grow also, what you are going to see specificities, meaning that if we say within BRICS, China deals with electric vehicles, or China deals with financing, that is going to be the role of China. I've already alluded to the question that the joining of South Africa was to have a point in Africa in terms of dormant, I would call them dormant African resources, which this then might even give us a chance of beneficiation in our own space. That's number one. Number two is the looming market, is a potential market rather, that will service the looming African youth dividend. So the ingredients are already there. And what we have in South Africa with this young population, we have it also in Brazil. Actually, BRICS, beyond solving global issues, it is solving national problems that each and every member state has, in terms that, because it has got the tools. If we can get rid of, if our economy grows, we'll be able to get rid of unemployment. We'll be able to educate our youth. And speaking about South Africa, I don't want to call them policies, I want to call them projects of BRICS align and are parallel with our own NDP, which is economic growth, get rid of unemployment, and better our people's lives, people of general population. So no, I don't see any parting of heads. It's too early. It is early days. And if it happens for a good reason, because that will be a learning curve. There is a lot at stake. There is a lot at stake.
My last question, Prof, is if you were one of the presidents sitting in this year's BRICS Summit, what is the one thing that you'd want to see coming out of that summit?
Well, I'll leverage on the summit to do two things. First one, I will ask for the fast tracking of payment systems, because if BRICS has got its own proprietary paying systems, the payment will be less. That will help with import and export. That will bring economic growth. But one most important thing, that will have to be backed by my own policies within my sovereign nation in order to attract investors. You fast track the BRICS payment system that will facilitate import export, That will even, to a certain extent or greater extent, kill trade deficit, because there are costs that have gone away. They will kill trade deficit. And if my GDP grows, it will attract more investors. And once these 4 points are in place, I won't have youth unemployment because I've got GDP growth. I'll be able to have substantive human development. And with human development, even within the ambit of BRICS, I'll be able to bring more people for knowledge transfer. But from one thing only. It starts from payment systems. If I'm able to use the rand as part and parcel of my trading, I facilitate import and export, I kill trade deficit, that will give maybe between 5 to 8 digits within a period to growth within a period of 3 to 5 years. That will attract investors because all of a sudden I'm flying high. And that will also strengthen my economic tools, because once your GDP goes higher, then you are able, you yourself as South Africa, to serve as a better anchor for other BRICS extra countries that are in your.
Professor, thank you very much.